When I enlisted in the Marine Corps, it took me a while to get used to being in the military, because some of the most mundane things that we did as part of the job, well, initially they seemed very strange to me. One of those things was the idea of going to the field. My first thought was that we were literally going to an actual field, just setting up tents in an open, grassy area and living outside for a few days. But since there would be work involved, it would be like camping with extra steps. I guess that's not exactly wrong, but we never had tents being recon. We spent the entire time doing patrols and just roughing it out in the jungle like Mowgli. And even if we did sleep in tents at times, most people would pick nice, safe, dry spots to set up their tents when they go camping, right? The military doesn't do that well. Maybe the Air Force does because, well, they go camping at the Hilton, but when I reached my first duty station in Hawaii, going to the field meant packing up a week's worth of food, water, fuel, batteries, our rifles, all of our personal gear, radios, and so on. And then we would drive in military vehicles in convoy fashion on the highway, or hop on a helicopter and go from our base to one of several military training installations on the island, most of which were covered in thick jungle. Going to the field therefore means something different depending on where any given unit is located in the world. For instance, Hawaii was often windy, rainy, and miserable at night, but besides the centipedes, there wasn't much animal life out there in the jungle that would bother you. And then they do bite, and they're very painful. But other than that, there wasn't really much out there. Going to the field on Camp Pendleton in California meant you might run into a rattlesnake or two, and probably stick yourself with a few cacti when you're walking around out in the desert at night. But the following two stories, one from a Marine conducting training in the mountains of Northern California, and the other from a National Guardsman training in the Wisconsin mountains east of the Mississippi River. Well, I'm not sure I have any idea what they encountered, especially as they indicate if it wasn't human. This is the smoke pit, and these are true stories submitted by fellow service members, stories about encounters that they had with something that is collectively known as a pale crawler, a music rake, Marine Corps, Mountain Warfare Training Center, Bridgeport, California. This story was emailed to me earlier this year by a young Marine whose name I have chosen to keep anonymous, mostly because he is still active duty, and I don't want his command or anyone else to catch wind of this and berate him for sharing this bizarre story and associating his command with it, or to otherwise draw any unwanted attention on him publicly. He writes, "My name is Corporal Oscar with the United States Marine Corps, and I have a story I'd like to share with you from our platoon time in Bridgeport for mountain training exercise a couple years ago, from September to October. Our platoon Alpha 2 of 1st CB Combat Engineer Battalion went to Bridgeport for a joint exercise with our Victor Unit 21 before we got there. We were briefed back on Camp Pendleton about things like high-altitude pulmonary anemia and how the oxygen difference with the altitude could cause hallucinations. We also heard other strange stories about the training area, such as people sometimes waking up right as Marine Animal Packers Marines patrolling with horses and donkeys would unexpectedly walk through the middle of the patrol bases at night, because the Animal Packers course used the same training area anyway when we got to Bridgeport's lower base camp. We were given 2 days to acclimatize our bodies to the altitude. In that time we explored the surrounding mountains, and we may or may not have climbed up mountains we weren't supposed to, and taken some cool pictures. The strange activities, though, started around 2 weeks into Bridgeport. We'd always make jokes about skinwalkers coming by and grabbing us in the middle of the night. but something did actually show up. Yo, Rambo, you put your damn knife away, go and get. These tarps up, all right. But one, it's a bayonet, and two, you got to admit this thing is pretty damn cool. Look at this thing. How much you pay for that thing anyway? $250, damn, bro, seriously. Did they come with a Camaro and 29% financing, whatever? Man, this thing is awesome. I mean, it's a classic. Just help me get the damn tarps up, will you, all right? All right, one night during an operation we called the Cool Sea. I'm not sure what it stands for. Probably Combat Operations something. We were at Bridgeport's highest landing zone, LZ Owl. We'd set up shelter with our tarps for the night. I should mention this tree we hooked our tarps on was growing up against a large rock face. I was a Lance Corporal at the time. I had with me one other Lance Corporal engineer and Lance Corporal water dog, a water specialist, and we used large rocks like small boulders and wooden stacks to anchor down our tarps to make a pyramid shape against the tree. So one end of the tarps was attached to the tree, and it was like a lean-to kind of built around the entire perimeter of this tree, so any water would roll off and keep our gear and US dry underneath. Another thing of note, the water dog we had with us would often be messing around with his rifle because he had a bayonet with him, and you know, he'd stick it on the end of his rifle. He liked playing with it. He liked showing it off. So once night came and the freezing snow started falling, we went under our tarps and into our sleeping bags. This was around 9 my p. Fam, I woke up around 10 p.m. to the sound of someone racking the charging handle of their weapon. Back, it's dead quiet up there, and we're supposed to be in a tactical environment, so making unnecessary noises like that is going to piss somebody off. So I look around, and me and my other engineers' M4s were on the ground next to us, and only the water dog's rifle was around the backside of the tree where only he could see Ito. It was dark. Yeah. And so I figure, what's up? It's this guy. He must be screwing around with his bayonet again. Is that you? So I asked him if that was him messing with his rifle. He gets up out of his sleeping bag and tells me that it wasn't him. So now I'm thinking that someone, maybe one of the infantry guys that we're training with, has snuck up to our patrol base and is messing with us. So I pull out my car and I crawl out from under the tarps. I'm going to go threaten some poor guy who thinks he's going to scare us, right? But there was nobody else nearby. What the hell? Hey, Oscar. Yes, Sergeant. What the hell are you doing? I heard a noise. Did you hear like a rifle or something? Yeah, is that you guys? No, Sergeant. What's with the knife? I came out because I thought it might be one of the infantry guys or something. Yeah. Okay, let me go ask the fire watch, see if they're screwing around God. So when I came out, my sergeant, he sees me coming up out of our lean-to, and he walks up to me and asks me what the hell I'm doing. You know, standing there, holding a knife and all. And I asked if he had heard the noise that we did, and he said that he did, thinking it was one of us racking our rifles, which I told him it wasn't. So, then he walks over to the nearby infantrymen on fire watch, and he asks if he or his guys were screwing around with their rifles, but that guy also knew nothing about it. So our sergeant comes back up and tells us that and says to just go back to sleep. So I went back in my sleeping bag and I forget all about it next. Time I woke up was 6 mamau, really. But now our tarps are all on the ground like something had pulled them down off the tree, and the small boulders we used to hold them down, they are nowhere to be found, and the stakes, same story, gone. So as we're trying to figure out what had happened with our tarps, our sergeant comes back up and tells us what he saw earlier that night. He said he didn't mention it because he thought he was seeing things at the time, but after he told us to go back to sleep, and I had crawled back into my sleeping bag, my sergeant said, Something caught his eye up at the top of the rock face behind us, and so he looks up and he sees this bald, naked, human-looking figure with shining eyes looking over from on top of the rock face, and as soon as he spotted it, he said he saw it duck away immediately. Thought you heard it on the roof. My first thought was a video I'd seen of a guy who was filming his house because he thinks there's a skinwalk or rake around his house, and when he sees it on top of his roof as he's filming it, as soon as he saw it, this thing also ducks behind the house and disappears. So again, my sergeant thought he was just seeing things, so he said he just went back to bed as well. But now with the tarps being messed with, I guess he thought he should tell us about it. We don't know what it was. Maybe somebody was messing with us, but I think we would have heard them moving around if it was a person. Whatever it was far more disciplined in silence than any infantryman or marine that I've ever met. I have a few pictures here as proof of our time in Bridgeport, if necessary, well, brother. I don't know what your sergeant saw either, but at least all it did was just mess with your gear. At least it didn't steal any of it. I mean, imagine trying to explain that to CTH. What happened to your tarp? It was stolen. By a rake, Yeah, but as horrible as this is to acknowledge, and this is the reason that there's an episode for this, and there will be at least another one or maybe two in future, because of the amount of stories I have, you are not the only person training out in the field to see something like this. I've got several more of these encounter stories from here in the US, and even a couple from some active soldiers. I think one was a British soldier, and I think a German soldier, training in Germany. A hairless, decrepit Bigfoot, maybe. A curious alien, only God knows, since it's not in any of the science books I've read. But since you didn't mention having any theories about the source of the noise you heard, which you and your sergeant both seem to identify as the charging handle on someone's M4. I did have one theory about that. These things, when they are sighted, are occasionally said to be excellent tree climbers, and since the sound woke you up rather than you, it's not as if you were sitting there listening and you heard it. It was a sound that woke you up. I thought maybe what you took to be the sound of a charging handle, which sounds like this might have otherwise been this music sound, which is the sound of a branch breaking. The two noises seemed close enough to me that if your sergeant's eyes weren't lying to him, maybe this thing was up in the tree above you, and it scrambled down when it saw your sergeant or another Marine walking closer, breaking a branch in its haste to get out of the tree, whatever it was. That's just one good reason that we still keep fire watch, even when we're in training. Stay frosty out there. Music. Guys, Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. Do this point all right, ladies. Let's go, hurry up and plot your points faster. You get out there, the faster you're going to get done. Unless you're not prior enlisted, then there's not really much hope for you. Officer is notoriously bad at land. This next story was submitted by a National Guardsman to the Phantoms and Monsters website. He writes, I want to share an experience I had while training with my National Guard unit at Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. I moved from enlisted to officer via ROC and was attached to a unit in my perspective, EMOS. While in the program, I don't really want to give specifics on my service, as the community is small enough to identify me to my peers. In 2014, my platoon decided to conduct nighttime land navigation at Fort McCoy from 20:30 to 00:30 in the morning. While the Army is typically all about buddy pairs, nightland navigation is one of the few cases we get to do things solo, because the whole point is to check that the individual soldier is qualified to do it without help. So I step off on my plotted route with my compass, my map and headlamp in hand for those who do not know. Land nav involves finding these engineering stakes, these markers on a course, by plotting their coordinates on a map and then walking from point to point, using various map reading techniques, terrain association, and of course a compass at night. This is typically done without light as much as possible. When light is used, your flashlight, it's a red lens. This minimizes the impact on a night vision. Ostensibly, these methods also keep you concealed in a tactical environment. You know, if you were actually doing this in a real combat scenario, along with practicing noise discipline, so it's all part of the training. So I was moving through the woods, while making a token effort to be difficult to spot or hear. The woodland I was in was part of a larger forest system, but was frequently traveled. That night, we had some 15 soldiers clomping around in the woods. My source of light was a headlamp that toggled between a red and white light. I had it set up initially so that the red light was the first light to turn on, so you turn it on. It's red. You turn it off. You turn it back on. After a couple seconds, it's still red, because to cycle the white light I would have to turn it off twice. So if you've used a headlamp like this, I don't need to explain it to you. But for those that are not familiar, when you cycle this headlamp, it starts on solid white. You turn it off, you turn it back on immediately. It changes to flashing white. You turn it off immediately, right back on solid red, off again, back on again, flashing red, and then off. And then if you turn it back on, it's back on solid white. Now, I'm not telling you all this for nothing, but I'll explain shortly why that matters during my initial planning. I saw that my sign points would take me to the other side of the course and back, good hour and a half distance at least, as the crow flies a bit longer to actually walk because the train goes up and down and you're in the woods at night. You're meandering around trees, moving slowly, trying not to gouge your eyes out on low-hanging branches, but the points I had were more or less in a straight line with one another, so I was just going to hit each one as I walked out into the training area. So I estimated maybe 1 to 2 hours out and back. I was just going to walk out, hit all my points, and then just walk back after I was done, but I knew if I came back too early, I might be given another set of points. So I resolved to just walk out, take a break for an hour once I was done if I had time, and then mosey on back. The first half of this goes as planned. I get my points without much trouble and wind up sitting on a hillside at around, it's maybe now 10. At night it's cloudy, but the moon is full, but it's windy, so the clouds are intermittently blocking the illumination from the moon, so I can see pretty well. When the sky is clear, but there is like no alum, when the cloud cover is too heavy, occasionally I see a red light bobbing in the distance below me. A pair of my platoon members pass down on the hill in front of me, using a white light to read their map, and I startled them when I asked if they needed help, because you know you're not supposed to be using your white light out there. But by the end of my break, I don't see any more motion in my area. Most people had likely walked out and back. They'd found all their points, or they were too lost, and ended up taking one of the roads to get back. So I'm feeling pretty at one with my surroundings, having sat in the same spot eating stale Skittles for a good long while. There's owls hooting. Trees are swaying. It was nice. I trot down this hill and I steer through some brush, and I'm now in a clearing where this prairie land intersects with forest. There are some dead trees in the area, and one of them is split. It's still standing. And it's split halfway up at the top of this broken tree, about 15 ft up off the ground. What I can make out a distinct head and shoulder silhouette against the clouds, which were backlit by the moon. There's enough light coming through that I can still make out this silhouette of this person. So I walk up to ask how the hell they got up there and if they're stuck and they need help, when this shadow twitches and I get the distinct impression it's now turned toward me. I stand there, looking at it, and maybe it's looking at me. The situation definitely feels off, but I wasn't about to let a battle buddy punk me. So I asked if they needed a hand. Hey, but mid-sentence, the moonlight comes back, and it's immediately clear to me that the thing on that tall stump was not a soldier. This moonlight glimpse is the best look I get at the thing. It looked like a stretched-out, bald person. Its long arms are clutching the stump. I can't make out the face, but it looks pinched, and by that I mean I couldn't see its eyes or mouth, like they were very small. And in the middle of the head it's skinny, like it hasn't eaten, but it's tall, and obviously strong enough to have made such a vertical climb on his tree. He was definitely looking at me, probably was the whole time I was in the clearing, maybe even since I came down the hill. So I swear loudly, and then it rapidly scurries down the trunk. I flick my red light on, and I catch it on all fours, moving toward the brush line in the direction I'm heading, and automatically I keep talking. Ling the lamp to be in the white light. That means it goes off then to flashing red, then to back on, then finally to white. So in the flash, as I scramble to get my damn headlamp working, I see the thing at the wood line, but I think it's flipped itself around and is backing into the tree line, probably, to keep its eyes on me, and in the few seconds it takes for me to get to the white light, it's gone. I scan the tree line, which is now silent when it moved. There was a scraping noise, plus the woodland brush was dense. If it was still running, I would hear it. So I reasoned that it must have stopped moving and it must still be watching me. So I fumbled to get my knife out, and I keep looking around the woods in front of me, and after what felt like ages, I start inching along a perpendicular path to my initial route of travel, an angle that will link me up with the hard ball road that runs up and down the side of the training course. And once on the road, I figure I can just take that road back to where my platoon is parked. My major problem is that the road is 10 minutes of walking from my current position, and it's mostly woodland that can't be helped. I have to get out of this clearing first, and my progress on that front is painfully slow because I'm just trying to keep my eyes on where I think this thing still is. And the whole time I am fighting this kind of natural urge to just freeze in place and not move. After Sid stepping about a good 10 mia, I hear a corresponding rustling, and I think I see movement that was enough to get me to just turn and bolt right into a down log, which trips me. I scramble back up to my feet and I look back to the wood line, where there is an audible commotion. I glimpse an emaciated leg and an ass moving back into the woods, and at this point I am done with the whole situation. But I don't want to run again and keep tripping, so I start power walking to the road, trying to look as much as I can over my left shoulder to see what this thing is doing, and over the movement of my own kit I can hear it moving alongside me parallel. And as I near the end of the clearing, I think I hear it picking up pace as if to cut me off. Before I enter the tree line, I made the decision to sprint, and when I enter the woods, my path is clear, but I'm pretty sure I can still hear it moving along with me in my periphery. I don't stop, I'm just running hard until I hit that paved road, and I ate it pretty hard a few times, tripping over stuff in the woods, but I just kept frantically getting back up and running. And once I'm on the road, I just ran until I couldn't hear it. I didn't think I could hear it anymore, so now I'm winded from this dead-out run for I don't know however many minutes, and from the middle of the road I had pretty good visibility so I decided to walk and try to catch my breath. It's quiet for a while, and then I hear a branch move about, had to be about 30 feet in the air from the woods on the side of the road that I had just run out of. I snap my gaze up and I see this pale oval-shaped face, this ovular face half in shadow peeking at me from around the trunk of a tree. Way up on the tree, I took off again, and I did not stop, and after what felt like way too long, I finally make it back. I see the headlights of our LMTVs, and I check my watch and it was 12:15. What happened? Cadet, you get lost out there. Why are you're covered in mud. Did you fall down? Why are you out of breath? Oh yeah, I got lost on my way back. I got lost. You going to be? Okay, I'm fine. I knew better than to tell them that I saw what I saw, a monster. Basically, in the years since drilling at FMC, I have never experienced anything like that again. McCoy does not have a history of disappearances, as far as I know neither do the two closest towns, Sparta and Toma. I've done nightland navigation alone a few times since without issue, but this is less from courage and more from me, just deciding to think that, maybe I just misinterpreted the situation and what I was seeing, but then again, maybe the world is weirder than I previously thought. Now a story where a lieutenant claims to understand land navigation and says that he found all of his grid points before everyone else. That is a story I would find questionable. Most officers would still be out there wandering around right now. But since this guy was a former enlisted soldier who then transitioned to become an officer, his proficiency at land navigation checks out in all seriousness. This is one of those stories that gives me the heebie-jeebies just reading it. I cannot imagine the anxiety of actually living through this experience. Everything you read online typically says that the existence of these creatures is entirely fictional. These rakes or pale crawlers, that it's all just some sort of creepypasta that was invented in the last couple decades. So either these two guys and everybody else are just pulling our legs for a laugh, or there is something weird skulking around. The mountains and forests, as I said, these are not the only stories I've received so far, and quite possibly these two are not even the most terrifying. If I was somebody living near the woods, I would keep my doors and windows locked at night, and if you're out training in the field, don't fall asleep on Firewatch music. Hey guys, so don't have much to add as far as additional comments on these stories, but because I poke so much fun at the officers being bad at LNAV, I did want to maybe justify that by sharing one of my own personal experiences with this very common military trope about particularly lieutenants being bad at land navigation. So my 6-man team, my recon team, we were in Guam. We were attached to the 31st MEU. This was a training mission that we were doing in Guam. We had been sent out into this godless jungle, some of the nastiest stuff I've ever walked through, and our whole objective was to get observation and radio collection on an enemy, a location where there was enemy activity. It was like a weapons cache that were building buildings. They had role players that were moving in and out, and ultimately it culminated with a high-value target that was going to be on site that we reported, and then the raid force was going to come in and kick the doors in, kill everybody, snatch the bad guy, the whole thing. So the 3 days go by, we send up all our reports. The raid force is coming in. Our next objective is to meet the raid force at a rally point, cuz they're going to pick us up and extract us. That's our ride out, so under the cover of darkness, we move to the rally point, and we're sitting in the middle of this field, dead tired, waiting for these guys to show up. And several hours go by, and we don't know where they are. And after a while, finally, they do show up and they drive right past us, just blow right past us, and I knew they were going in the wrong direction. So we're like, what the hell's going on? They do have to turn around. It was just the most embarrassing thing to see, because these giant trucks are on this little tiny dirt road with an embankment on both sides, so they have to do like this 350-point turn just to get all of these, I don't know, maybe 10 trucks turned around, and then start moving in the other direction. It was just really clumsy. So finally they come back to where we are, they stop to pick us up, and of course perfect timing. As always, here comes this torrential wall of rain as we're sprinting to the trucks to try to stay. We've been dry for 3 days. We do not want to get wet at the last second. So we clamber into the back of the 7 even ton, throw our gear up. We manage to stay dry. And now we're just chilling in the back of this truck. Our mission is done, but the convoy doesn't go anywhere. And as I'm sitting there dead tired, I haven't slept in 2 days, I hear this kind of fierce conversation going on outside the tarp. And it's a sergeant talking to somebody else. One of the other team, a leaders or his ATL, something like that. The lieutenant doesn't know where we are was the gist of the conversation that I was hearing. And the next thing I heard was a command being passed down the whole line of trucks. Everybody out, all the infantry. Guys, we're going to unload. Get your kits on, get your rifles ready. We're going to move to the raid site from here where we just stopped on the road. Now I was the navigator for my team. I had studied this map very well. I was familiar with the training area. We walked around it, I knew where we were and I knew where the enemy was. And I knew this was the worst possible place to unload and move these guys, because there's like a kilometer of solid, nasty jungle. When I say it was the worst jungle I ever patrolled through, it wasn't the terrain, everything was covered in thorns. It was like an acupuncture treatment. Just walking, it was horrible. I was so worried about getting my eyes poked out, seriously. And the spiders, I've never seen so many. Spiders at night, you can't see them. But the cobwebs like in my face the whole time at the front of this patrol. And then when daylight came, it was like some ungodly, like the forest in Harry Potter. Unbelievably terrifying amount of spiders. The Guam has like some really bad problem with spiders apparently. And they're huge, but anyway, I knew that these infantry guys, there was a platoon-sized element, plus going to move through this jungle in any short amount of time. No, so I'm sitting there in the truck kind of mulling this over as I hear all these guys getting ready to step off. And this is one of the points in my career where I can say something, save these guys a bunch of hassle. Or I could just stay nice and comfortable in the truck. And Warmwell, my conscience got the better of me. I hopped out of the truck, immediately got soaked. Walked up to the front. I'm asking guys up the line. Like, hey, who can I talk to? Who's in charge? Here, who's the navigator? I get pointed up. To the very front lead vehicle, there's a lieutenant and a sergeant looking over this map. So I go up to them and I just kind of interject in their conversation. Excuse me, gentlemen. And they're like, oh yeah, who are you? What do you want? And I said, well, I'm the navigator for the recon team. My name is Sergeant Ellman. Are you guys planning on stepping off from here? And the lieutenant's like, yeah. So, I'm looking at this map here, and the enemy site is just north of us from where we are. So we're just gonna basically cut through this brush line right here, this wood line, and then we'll be on at the enemy in like 15 minutes. Now he hasn't patrolled control through this jungle. I have. It's going to take like 3 hours. So I tell them that, and I explain how horrible the jungle is, and the sergeant is now looking at me like, bro, please help us. Tell us where to go. This man has no idea what he's doing. So I just say, look, if you guys just drive straight down this road about half a click and then take a left from there, and then another kilometer to the north, you are right on top of the enemy. You do not have to send your guys through this ungodly jungle. Lieutenant looks at his sergeant. His sergeant seems to agree. He looks at me. He's like, okay, yeah, everybody. Load back up. They load everybody back up, and the sergeant asks me on offline. He grabs me. He's like, bro, can you please sit in the lead vehicle with the lieutenant and tell the driver where to go? So I go back and I tell my team leader, hey, I'm going to be sitting up in the lead truck for the rest of this mission. I tell the driver literally, it was what I said. It just drive down the road. There's a turn coming up to the left. And I say, he just take this left-hand turn, and the driver's like cursing and muttering under his breath. He's like, bro, we passed this thing 3 times, and so we take the left-hand turn. And sure enough, they stop just short of the enemy. They unload and never have to walk through any jungle. They just walk right up this nice road and hit the enemy guns blasting. People screaming, end of story, mission accomplished. So yeah, I have more experiences like that. But that was one of the funnier ones that came to mind when I thought about lieutenants and land navigation. So thank you guys so much for the support. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much to my Patreon and YouTube channel members. It is the holiday season. So God bless all of you and your family. Stay safe if you're traveling. If you're having a rough time this holiday season, it's not perfect for everyone, so I do pray that God will be with you. No matter what you are dealing with, you will make it through it. And I will see you in the next episode.